British Army entered the county town of Haddington in the early afternoon of the 19th of September 1745. It turned straight onto the High Street and then continued to the other side of the town. There was no time to pause in the town itself. There was plenty of marching time left in the day, but there were concerns. There was a particular concern about where the best water was to be found beyond Haddington. Also, as you move further now towards Edinburgh, the chances of encountering the Jacobite army would start to increase. So, as the army passed through the town, it was decided that it would encamp on the western side. But just as at Dunbar, there was no baggage and tentage for the dragoons, leaving those cavalrymen to vie over the best spots within the town for billeting on the afternoon and the evening of the 19th of September. From around 2 o'clock in the afternoon then on the 19th of September, the inns of Haddington were filled with men, all of them jostling for rooms, for spaces, for tables, but also for dinner. They wanted their food. But whilst they were still waiting for it to be cooked, the word suddenly spread through the town that the Jacobite army had been sighted. The army had been ordered to form up and deploy for battle. So in courtyards like this that were behind the principal inns of the town, you can imagine the sudden scenes as men rushed out into these yards trying to mount up onto their horses and then get back out onto the high street. Alexander Carlyle was amongst them, and he remembers crossing back onto the street and there seeing Colonel James Gardner of the 13th Dragoons, who advised his young neighbour that this was all probably a false alarm once again and there was probably no need to panic. Nevertheless, as the Haddington's inns emptied, the army prepared to deploy. Now, the main British camp was on the western side of Haddington, near the St. Lawrence burn, from which the men could fill their canteens. But when the alarm spread, they formed up in battle formation, expecting the Jacobites to attack them here. They probably deployed roughly where I am now, in the grounds of what is now the hospital at Roodlands. But once again, it turned out to be a false alarm. What was the cause of the alarm this time? Not angry farmers trying to protect their crops. This time, it was actually a wedding. The Jacobite vanguard that had been sighted to the west turned out to be none other than Francis Weems Charteris and his new wife, Lady Kitty Gordon. Now, they were on their way back from their wedding at Preston Hall, heading towards Amosfield, just outside Haddington here. Their carriage, escorted by retainers and well-wishers, was mistaken for the vanguard of the Highland Army. Now, perhaps this raised a smile of amusement on the face of Francis's brother, David Weems, Lord Elcho, who at this moment was with the Jacobite army in Edinburgh. And had he heard of it, perhaps he'd be amused by the fact that his brother, who was trying to keep out of the rising, had nonetheless contributed to an increasingly jittery state of mind in the British army here at Haddington.